Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, where wisdom deserves to be shared. Wishing you an enjoyable listening experience. Hello and welcome to tune into this book every day. Today, the book we're going to delve into is The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read by Philippa Perry. The subtitle is, And Your Children Will Be Glad That You Did. Doesn't it sound intriguing? The title suggests that this is undoubtedly a work about parenting methods within the family. Moreover, according to this title, parenting is a systemic endeavor that involves at least 3 generations, including the core figures, the parents, their own parents, the previous generation, and the children. This book quickly became the top book on The Times bestseller list and the best-selling book in the parenting category on Amazon shortly after its release in the United Kingdom. The author of this book, Philippa Perry, is a seasoned British psychotherapist with over 20 years of experience. In the book's preface, she shares that many of the parents she has counseled over the years have faced psychological issues stemming from their relationships with their children. Through listening to their stories, Perry gradually came to realize that the essence of parenting lies in our relationship with our children. A healthy and intimate parent-child relationship is the source of a child's healthy growth and empowerment, much like fertile soil nourishing the growth of plants. While interactions with children involve countless details, Perry's purpose in writing this book is not to teach perfection in the details, such as how to change diapers correctly or what time children should go to bed. Instead, she aims to guide us in focusing on a few essential aspects: our relationship with our children, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our past, and our relationship with the world around us. Furthermore, Perry named this work The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read because she presents a crucial new perspective. She emphasizes that the psychological traumas and flawed behavioral patterns resulting from our upbringing, due to our parents' mistakes or oversights, can unconsciously be passed on to our own children as we become parents ourselves, perpetuating a cycle of harm and dysfunction. Therefore, Perry outlines a series of principles and methods in the book to remind those who are already parents or soon-to-be parents of how to avoid repeating their parents' mistakes in parenting and break this cycle of harm. Next, I will introduce the book's content in 3 parts. First, let's discuss how to engage in self-healing and repair during interactions with our children. In the second part, we will follow Perry's narrative to understand how to create a normal and comfortable environment for our children's growth. This environment is not so much about material conditions but about how we understand and accommodate our children's feelings and respond appropriately. Finally, we will explore why it is said that parents set the best example for their children in education, guiding them to emulate themselves. At the beginning of this book, Philippa Perry shares a story about her colleague, Tai, a highly skilled and kind-hearted psychotherapist. By all accounts, Tai should have been an exemplary mother. However, one day, something incredible happened. Tai's 7-year-old daughter, Emily, was playing on a climbing frame in the park and told her mother that she was stuck and wanted to be carried down. At that moment, Tai inexplicably felt a surge of anger, thinking her daughter was being unreasonable. She yelled at Emily to come down immediately, forcing the teary-eyed Emily to climb down on her own. Emily, still seeking comfort, tried to hold on to her mother's hand, but Tai, still angry, angrily pushed her away, leaving Emily in tears. About a week later, Tai took Emily to the park to play on the climbing frame again. In a moment of clarity, Tai realized the reason behind her inexplicable outburst during the previous incident. It turns out that in Tai's own upbringing, her mother had been excessively protective, limiting Tai's actions out of fear for her safety. This overprotection had eroded Tai's confidence and ability to explore new things and develop herself. The negative emotions buried deep within her suddenly surfaced in a familiar parenting scenario, where her daughter was stuck on a climbing frame. She also uncovered her anger towards her own mother and a strong desire not to let her daughter grow up in a similar environment. In response, Tai promptly apologized to her daughter and provided an explanation, resolving the conflict that had arisen. Many parents can likely relate to this scenario, realizing that they sometimes repeat the same patterns they experienced with their own parents unintentionally. Perry advises us that when we suddenly experience strong negative emotions toward our children's words or actions, such as anger, frustration, fear, or disgust, we should treat it as an internal alarm. It's not a signal that our children have done something wrong and need correction. Instead, it's a reminder that our own traumatic memories have been triggered. If our psychological trauma occurred in infancy, the damage can be even more severe, resulting in lifelong obsessions and behavioral patterns. Whenever an element related to the traumatic memory appears in the external environment, the fear of being hurt resurfaces. Specifically, our excessive anger towards our children's behavior is a form of dysregulation, an extreme coping mechanism our self-awareness employs to restore emotional balance. During such moments, the higher functions of the brain, responsible for language, reasoning, and empathy, temporarily shut down, making it difficult to understand our child's feelings. Perry advises that we shouldn't blame our children for this unexplained anger, nor should we excessively blame ourselves. What we should do is trace and deconstruct the root cause, striving to establish a new response pathway in our consciousness. This way, we can prevent this harm from being perpetuated through our behavior and passed down to our children and future generations. To establish a new response pathway, the most crucial step is to develop empathy towards our children. Take a moment to reflect on what emotions and feelings prompted similar actions when you were your child's age. How did your parents react to such actions back then? Deep down, what kind of treatment did you hope to receive from your parents? In her book, Philippa Perry provides an example. She had a client named Oscar who adopted a 1.5-year-old boy. However, the child frequently dropped food on the floor or threw it around during meals, which infuriated Oscar. Perry asked Oscar how he would have been treated if he had acted similarly when he was a child. Oscar honestly confessed that his stern grandfather would tap his fingers with the handle of a dining knife and then send him out of the room. Despite the difficulty of discussing this childhood experience, Oscar's patience with his adopted son gradually increased after he identified the root of his anger during counseling. Another common source of anger and frustration for many parents is when their child won't stop crying. The author analyzes that this situation may be directly linked to our own early childhood experiences when we were prevented from crying by our parents' strict interventions, preventing us from releasing negative emotions. We instinctively avoid triggering the pain we felt at that time and want to silence our children. You might wonder, what if I've already made similar mistakes? What can I do now? Philippa Perry reassures that cracks in parent-child relationships are inevitable. However, the most important thing is to repair them. Parents willingly taking the initiative to repair their relationship with their children is of significant importance because children are still developing in terms of personality, physicality, values, and life skills. Parents are their primary source of security. Some parents have asked Perry if apologizing to their children might prematurely undermine their authority within the family. To this, Perry firmly states that it won't. What children need are genuine and trustworthy parents, not infallible ones. Pretending that we never make mistakes and refusing to acknowledge the true reasons behind situations will lead children to question their own understanding, resulting in cognitive dissonance. Children who overly rely on their parents may begin to self-blame needlessly and scrutinize their actions excessively, attempting to find non-existent faults, ultimately developing a people-pleasing personality. Conversely, some children may already detect the flaws and inconsistencies, leading to a development of cold and distant parent-child relationships. Children might even seek emotional support and assistance from external sources during this process, potentially leading them down a troubled path if they encounter malicious individuals. On the contrary, if we have the courage to admit our mistakes and take proactive steps to repair the relationship correctly, this positive habit will also be instilled in our children. Philippa Perry recalls an instance when she was driving her 4-year-old daughter. Her daughter was in a bad mood, but after they arrived home, she went to the kitchen, had a piece of cake, and said to herself, "Mom, I'm sorry for throwing a tantrum in the car earlier because I was hungry. But I'm better now." This made Perry feel immensely gratified because her daughter had the self-awareness to reflect on her behavior and attempt to mend the rift in their mother-daughter relationship. Therefore, from the moment your child enters your life, your primary task is to pass on the positive experiences from your own upbringing, such as love, patience, and effort, to your child, while making an effort to lock away negative childhood experiences and emotions. These negative experiences and emotions sometimes manifest in a subtle form, our inner monologue. Think about it for a moment. Do you have a voice deep inside you or in your mind that constantly judges your every move? Philippa Perry tells us that if this inner voice's criticism and doubts far outweigh self-affirmation and praise, we should pay special attention. Abnormal self-criticism not only affects us but also steers our children's cognitive development away from the right path. In her book, Perry shares a case involving a client named Elaine, a mother of 2 children. During counseling, Elaine realized that the persistent self-doubting voice deep within her, which constantly undermined her self-esteem, actually emanated from her own mother. Elaine's mother had been extremely harsh, subjecting her to various forms of negation and suppression, leaving an indelible mark on Elaine's childhood memories. Consequently, as an adult, Elaine inevitably inherited her mother's personality traits. Upon recognizing this, Elaine consciously started to combat this inner voice, making an effort not to pass on this negative emotional baggage to her two children. Following Perry's advice, Elaine stopped wasting precious energy arguing with this inner voice and instead treated it as a difficult colleague. She listened to what it had to say but didn't take it too seriously. At the same time, she bravely encouraged herself to step out of her comfort zone and attempt things that this inner voice discouraged her from doing. With each successful endeavor, she noticed that the frequency and volume of self-criticism in her inner voice gradually diminished. Towards the end of this section, Perry also provides a valuable tip for achieving self-repair in parenting. That is, when evaluating ourselves or our children, we should avoid using simplistic labels like good or bad. For ourselves, the fear of becoming so-called bad parents might make us reluctant to admit our mistakes and neglect our children's emotional needs. Conversely, consistently applying value judgments to a child's words and actions doesn't contribute to their growth or improvement. Harsh criticism, in particular, only increases a child's sense of frustration and creates distance in the parent-child relationship. So, what is the correct approach? It's to appreciate the efforts of both ourselves and our children and describe the details of those feelings. For example, if a child spends a lot of time drawing a picture, inadequate parents may remain indifferent or criticize the child, simply stating that it doesn't look good. Typical parents might offer a vague compliment, saying it's not bad. Ideal parents, as described by Perry, would say, "You spent a lot of time and thought on this house drawing, that's truly impressive. This house seems to be smiling, and seeing it makes me feel happier too." Perry emphasizes that how we perceive ourselves and respond to our children's words and actions is crucial in parent-child relationships. Our reactions shape their personality traits and character. Well, just now we primarily discussed how parents can better themselves internally. Now, let's continue along with Philippa Perry's narrative to understand how parents should treat their children and create a proper and comfortable environment for their growth. Speaking of this, many parents often have a misconception. They tend to simplify the creation of a proper and comfortable environment for a child's growth into a series of material conditions and hardware, such as living conditions, financial status, or educational choices. However, Perry tells us that these factors are not as critical as a sense of home. She provides an example in her book where a lawyer friend visited a refugee family. The family's living conditions were undoubtedly poor, yet one child said to her, "We have a home, it's just temporarily without a fixed place." Through this simple story, Perry explains that a proper and comfortable environment for growth means that even if parents cannot spend much time with their children for various reasons or if material conditions are relatively limited, children can still have an intimate and secure way of interacting with their parents. So, how can we create such an ideal environment? Perry presents two principles based on her research and psychological counseling experience. Firstly, it's about learning to honestly address conflicts. Every family has disagreements, but the key is how to handle and resolve them without allowing differences to damage relationships among family members. After all, conflicts put children in a state of alertness, threatening their sense of security and causing them to shift into an emergency response mode. So, as parents, what should we do? Firstly, it's about sticking to discussing the issue and how it makes you feel, defining it for yourself without attacking the other person. For example, when you didn't reply to my message while using your phone, I felt hurt. This is a constructive way of communication where you discuss the problem and then define your feelings. On the contrary, if you start with something like, "You're always on your phone and ignore me," it's easy to escalate the conflict and deviate from the main issue. After all, attacking only triggers the other person's defense mechanism and doesn't help resolve the problem. Furthermore, during disagreements, we should consider the other person's feelings and avoid hasty denials. Additionally, we should carefully think about which unmet needs, either from past memories or the immediate actions of family members, are behind the anger that led to the conflict. It's essential to distinguish whether the anger arises from trauma caused by past memories or from the current actions of family members. Previously, we discussed a book titled How to Fight Properly, which outlines several principles for quarrels between intimate partners, including maintaining honesty, acknowledging facts, always believing that the other person means well, accepting shared responsibility for the unsatisfactory situation, and identifying each other's underlying needs and personal flaws constructively. These principles also apply to conflicts between family members and between parents and children. The second principle is to be empathetic and understanding of a child's feelings, rather than just focusing on addressing specific issues. Perry found in her counseling work that one of the main reasons adults develop depression is the inability to receive comfort from their parents during childhood. Many parents, due to neglect or intentional disregard, often overlook their children's feelings, especially negative ones. However, these feelings do not simply disappear when denied. Instead, they accumulate and become enduring wounds deep within the child. For instance, a child growing up in a household marked by continuous conflict and violence might mistakenly believe that violence and control are also part of love. They may develop a strong dependency on any sign of affection from others. Perry provides an example in her book about a couple, Anne and John, who had a 10-year-old son named Lucas. Due to their busy entrepreneurial lives, Anne and John had little time to spend with Lucas, often relying on hired help to take care of him. Shockingly, one day, 10-year-old Lucas attempted suicide. In counseling, Lucas revealed that his parents rarely spent time with him and frequently heard them arranging for others to look after him, making him feel like a burden. He couldn't sense his parents' love and felt tossed around like a football. When he tried to talk to his father, John's responses seemed dismissive, such as promising to buy a new video game or planning a trip to the zoo. To change this situation, John took advice from a psychotherapist. Whenever Lucas expressed sadness, John would ask him to describe his feelings and what was making him sad. Instead of immediately trying to fix the problem, John started by listening. At the same time, John paused his work and spent a month at home with his son. After Lucas's emotional recovery, John and Anne decided that at least one of them had to be home by 6 p.m. to ensure they could spend at least 2 hours with their son. So, as parents, we need to be tolerant and understanding of our children's feelings, especially the negative ones, without either ignoring them or overreacting. Children find their family environment comfortable and safe because parents are willing to listen to their feelings and show understanding, empathy, and support. Perry emphasizes that attention and responsiveness to a child's feelings should start from the moment they are born. Even before they have developed basic language skills, their gestures, expressions, cries, and other sounds are their means of communication. Parents should engage with their children in various ways, including using onomatopoeic words, gestures, and facial expressions. As long as children know that their feelings can elicit their parents' consistent attention and response, they will naturally feel love and security within the family environment. Moreover, when a child's feelings deviate or contradict our common sense or cognitive understanding, we should not rush to negate them. Their age and thought processes may lead them to express emotions that do not align with their language. For instance, if a child says, "Mom never takes us out to play," they might not be denying the fact that their parents have taken them out before. Instead, they may be expressing boredom from staying at home for an extended period and hoping their parents will pay attention and take action. Of course, being empathetic and understanding does not mean indulging every demand, even unreasonable ones. For example, a father named Dave had a 4-year-old daughter, Nova, who could be quite obstinate. When something upset her, she would burst into tears. Dave didn't want to get into endless arguments with his daughter, nor did he want to unconditionally indulge her. So, he tried a different approach based on Perry's advice. One day, while driving, Nova's cousin sat in Nova's usual seat, causing her to start crying again. Dave didn't force the two children to switch seats or scold Nova. Instead, he crouched down to be at eye level with her and said he understood how much Nova wanted to sit in her usual spot but that today was a special exception. He then asked Nova where she would like to sit other than her usual spot. Eventually, Nova stopped crying and sat in her child's seat. During the journey, she began to chat happily with her cousin and Dave, as if the seat issue had never existed. "All right, we've discussed the self-repair and healing of parents, as well as the proper creation of a family environment. Now, let's move on to another crucial aspect of parent-child relationships, how to teach children proper behavior and lay a solid foundation for their future in society." There's a significant finding in a well-known children's education book called The Gardener and the Carpenter. It suggests that children are naturally resistant to passive information imposed on them by others. Instead, they actively observe, imitate, and comprehend the words and actions of adults. In some ways, children might even understand their parents better than the parents themselves. So, if parents want their children to grow up correctly and exhibit appropriate behavior, straightforward indoctrination and lecturing won't be very effective. If you want your child to become a certain kind of person, you must demonstrate behavior consistent with your expectations in front of them. We all hope our children behave properly in public. However, Perry says that when we break down these behaviors, they encompass 4 essential skills: resilience, adaptability, problem-solving, and empathy. Children who are good at imitating and come from stable family environments can easily learn these 4 skills through imitation. Perry gives an example in her book. If you want your children to help with household chores and develop good habits, the ideal approach is not to motivate or bribe them with pocket money or rewards. Instead, you should spark their natural inclination to play and imitate while introducing them to household chores in the context of a game they enjoy, like playing house. This way, their willingness to participate in chores arises not from material rewards but from a sense of achievement, an increased sense of belonging to the family, and helping parents they have an intimate connection with. Of course, for many children, behavioral imitation and learning might not go so smoothly. In such cases, instead of rushing to criticize the child, we should use our empathy to analyze the needs behind their behavior. Many parents have overly strict disciplinary measures, such as punishing children for rude or wrong behavior. This can make children feel like their independent will is being ignored, leading to feelings of humiliation and anger. However, on the other hand, being too lenient can allow children to run wild, lose a sense of purpose, and fail to establish necessary self-restraint. So, what should we do? Perry proposes a solution: cooperative parenting. Specifically, start by setting a goal for the child while leading by example. For instance, maintaining cleanliness in the house is essential, and parents are continually working to make everyone's life convenient and comfortable. But your room has become a bit messy lately, and we hope you can tidy it up yourself. The second step is to seek the child's feelings behind their hesitation and resistance and show understanding and empathy for those feelings. For example, maybe the child thinks cleanliness and comfort aren't related, or perhaps they feel that being forced to clean their room diminishes their authority over their personal space. Maybe the mess in the room is a result of friends or siblings playing and not cleaning up, making the child feel it's unfair to have to clean up after others. The next step is to sit down with the child as equals and discuss. Indeed, tidying up a room can sound like a daunting task. Through brainstorming, how can we make it less challenging, add fun and excitement? The final step is to persist and turn it into a regular behavior pattern for the child. Alright, I really hope my parents have read this book. The main content is basically introduced to you here. While a parent's love for their child is the only unconditional love in the world, not all parents can establish a healthy parent-child relationship with their children. Many parent-child relationships within families are filled with intentional or unintentional mistakes that leave a negative impact on a child's entire life. Author Perry, drawing from her years of experience in psychological counseling, starts with the goal of constructing an ideal parent-child relationship and discusses 3 essential parenting questions: how to heal and repair oneself through interactions with one's child, how to create a normal and comfortable growth environment for the child, and how to guide the child's behavior through leading by example and equal communication. In the later part of the book, Perry condenses the specific solutions to these 3 questions into 10 concrete items and tells us that parenting is indeed a monumental, arduous, and lengthy project. But if we accomplish these 10 tasks, we will find it much easier, and we will experience personal growth and fulfillment. For example, understanding your childhood obstacles, comprehending how these obstacles hinder your ability to establish better parent-child relationships. Apart from issues, alternate between viewing and analyzing from both the child's perspective and your own. In parent-child relationships, there is no win-lose situation. You and your child are not engaged in a zero-sum game. Cooperation is the key. Help your child find ways to express their true feelings. Don't rush to tell your child what to do, let them brainstorm solutions themselves. Acknowledge your mistakes, make efforts to change, and promptly mend your relationship with your child. Throughout the principles and solutions for these 3 questions, there runs a golden thread of self-compassion. Children are not troublesome issues waiting to be dealt with, nor are they projects that need perfection. Children are individuals who need understanding and support. Investing in children not only makes them better people in the future but also makes you a better person. When problems arise, don't focus solely on the child. Observe carefully what has happened in both yourself and your relationship with the child. This is often where we find the answers. So, that's the essence of this book. Congratulations, you've listened to another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker Channel audiobook channel. Like and share it with your family and friends. Wisdom is worth spreading, and it opens the way to a better future. Thank you, and goodbye.